Hi everybody, this is Charles, and this is my Q&A prompt. Okay, so here are the questions, and wow, I've got quite a lot of questions, so thank you for everybody who participated. Okay, this is from Marcel Denzel Lahori. He's also known as Super Kami Onyx, and he'll be collabing with me, my cameraman Leo, for our channel. Okay. First question, favorite manga? Whew, good question. I borrowed some manga at the library, so right now I'm reading Full Metal Alchemist, Blue Exorcist, and Naruto, and they're my favorite anime too. Second question, favorite female superhero? Batgirl. Some of you know that I'm a big Batman fan, so that's an easy one, Batgirl, because she's the daughter of James Gordon and a good friend of Bruce Wayne, and she's pretty skilled in being a detective and a martial artist. She's just as good as her mentor Bruce Wayne. Third question, favorite African American superhero? For that one, that would be a tie between Black Panther and Spawn, because they're both pretty cool superheroes. Fourth question, favorite superhero movie? I have a lot of favorite superhero movies. For Marvel, I would say a tie between Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. A cliche, I know, but those both of those movies are pretty good, and I can't wait for Age of Ultron. And fifth and last question, favorite anime? Ooh, another good question. It depends. Like, my favorite anime that I first watched would be Dragon Ball Z, like a lot of anime fans, because I grew up with it, and if it weren't for Dragon Ball Z, I wouldn't watch other anime. But for my current favorite anime, I would say Tokyo Ghoul, because that has some serious storytelling and character development. So thank you, Marcel, who will be helping me with my channel. Thank you for participating. Next is Leo Berry, also known as Devil Toys UK 2, who's also a really good friend of mine. So a shout out to him. Okay, first question. What comics are you reading right now? Oh, that's a really good question. I read so many titles right now, but the most recent ones are, Batman Eternal, Deadpool, because Deadpool's gonna die in the next issue, a lot of Spider-Man comics, a lot of Guardians team-up comics, a lot of Green Lantern comics. What else is there? A lot of Avengers comics and Justice League comics. So, yeah. Second question. What movies are you wanting to see this year? There's two movies I want to see this year, and that's Avengers Age of Ultron and Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. I'm excited for Age of Ultron because, I'm a big comic book fan, well, obviously. And, especially an Avengers fan, even way before the movies came out. And what makes me more excited is that, my favorite Avengers villain will appear in it, Ultron. He's so intimidating. And I'm excited for the new Star Wars movie because it's been a while since we had a Star Wars movie. And, just like comic books, it played a big part in my childhood. I especially love, the lightsaber battles, the blaster gun battles, the spaceship battles, the drama between the characters, everything. Okay. Third question. What was the last game you completed? I haven't played a lot of video games recently because I've been busy, but the most recent one was Spider-Man Web of Shadows, because I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and his games are just plain excellent. And I love everything from the open world environment, from the combat mechanics and the web shooting. and the graphics are pretty great for its time, especially that it was previous generation. But the game I'm excited to come out is Mortal Kombat 10. So I'm really excited for that, especially that it's gonna come out next month. Okay? Fourth question. What was the last action figure you got? I'm glad you asked that, Leo, so I have it with me. The DC Universe Classics Blue Beetle, you know, it cost me like $43 at Amazon, but it was totally worth it. Plus, that was its cheapest price because there was one for $70 and I was like, oh no, I can't afford that. So this is the best I can get. And Blue Beetle is one of my favorite superheroes growing up. Is that right, Leo Antolin?
That's right.
So thank you for that question, Leo Barry. And last question. Who's your favorite superhero and why? I actually have three. Spider-Man, Batman, and Spawn, you know, and I'll give a reason for each. Spider-Man, I can relate to him because, you know, I'm a nerd, I get bullied a lot, but, you know, I found hobbies that made me feel good about myself and boost my self-confidence, especially studying martial arts. Isn't that right, Leo?
Mm-hmm.
Batman, well, I love him because for a lot of reasons. I grew up watching his 90s cartoon with my parents. You know, a lot of Batman fans can agree with me on that. And, you know, I love his background and, you know, it's pretty tragic to see his parents die before his own eyes. And I have a lot of empathy for him because losing people you love can hurt a lot. And he's quite determined because he studies criminology, martial arts, how to escape, you know, the most difficult death traps. And Spawn because, you know, despite, you know, doing bad things in his life, he tries to make it up in the afterlife as a hell spawn, you know, try and break that stereotype that, oh, I'm from hell and I'm evil. But, you know, and he uses his powers to help people and for greater good. So, Leo Barry, aka Devil Toys UK2, thank you so much for that question. Okay. Next question. Alex Lemons. Another good friend of mine on YouTube. He has one question. And his question is, am I familiar with the GoBots cartoon and what are my thoughts on it? I am familiar with GoBots, and a common misconception is that people think it's a knockoff of Transformers, but technically GoBots came first. And I am familiar with it. I have no interest in GoBots, but I do have to give it credit for, you know, being the first cartoon with the concept of, you know, sentient living robots that can transform into vehicles and other machines. I'm a big Transformers fan, and, you know, that's what I always prefer, but I do respect GoBots as a medium. So thank you, Alex Lemons. Next question. It's from Collector 1970. If you had to collect just one thing, what would it be and why? Ooh, that's a really good question. But I'll answer this question the best I can. And the thing is, if I had to pick only one, I would say I wouldn't collect anything because I love to collect a lot of things, and that's what makes it exciting, you know, collecting a variety. And collecting one thing is boring, so I would rather collect nothing than not collect anything because it's like picking your favorite child. You love them equally. So thank you, Collector 1970. Next question. Comic Toy Reviews. Another good friend of mine, you know. A good friend of mine on YouTube and Facebook. Who's your favorite superhero and why? Well, I've answered that question. Spider-Man, Batman, and Spawn. And, well, you already can guess why, as I explained earlier. But thank you for asking. What is your most prized toy line? Very good question, Bobby. I have a lot of favorites right now, but at the moment it would have to be DC collectibles because I rarely collect DC toys, and there's a lot of cool characters, just like in Marvel Legends and Star Wars. But that's my favorite at the moment. And last question. List your top 3 favorite superhero movies. That's another good one. For my top 3, I would say Avengers for number 1 spot, Guardians of the Galaxy second place, and Man of Steel. All of those movies are really good and brought life to the comic books. So thank you, Comic Toy Reviews, or also known as Bobby. Thank you, buddy. Next question. Darth Phoenix 619. Another good friend of mine. In fact, he lives around in the Sacramento area, and I hope to see him someday, whether it's at a convention or at a comic book place, anywhere. And I look forward to meeting him because he's a really good friend of mine. Okay. First question. Favorite superhero? Wow. I've answered that question, but I'll just repeat the answer. Spider-Man, Batman, and Spawn. But thank you for asking. What collectibles are you currently collecting? Right now, a lot of comic books I get at my comic book store, but in terms of other collectibles, in terms of toys, I've been collecting Marvel Legends, DC collectibles, Star Wars, and any of that good stuff. You know, I hope to get more of that stuff. Thoughts on episode 7 of Star Wars? When I first saw this trailer, it kind of made me laugh because at the beginning you saw an astro droid, you know, rolling like a soccer ball, and it was screaming. That made me really laugh. But what caught my attention the most was the crossguard lightsaber, you know, especially with the energy blades coming out of the guard of the sword. And wow, I haven't been that excited for a unique design of a lightsaber since Darth Maul's double lightsaber. And I hope the movie turns out better than I thought. And last question. Favorite color? Easy. Black. So, Tony, thank you for asking. Next question. DK TARDIS. Another good friend of mine on YouTube, and I am definitely giving him a shout out. First question. Do you collect Transformers? And if so, who is your favorite? I'm glad you asked, DK TARDIS. I do collect Transformers, and that's the reason why I subscribe to you, DK TARDIS. And my favorite right now is Transformers Generations Drift. You know, it's because, you know, he's my favorite character in the Transformers comic books, and I just love the idea of a Decepticon turned Autobot, and especially that he's a ninja samurai archetype type of character. And I love his story of redemption of, you know, from being evil to good, and that's why I like him so much. Second question. What's your collection like, and will you do a collection video? I have quite the collection. And Leo, will you, you know, show my viewers, you know, my collection right now? So that's what my collection is like, and yes, I do plan to do a collection video in the future, so thank you for asking. Third question. Who is your favorite Marvel and DC character? Well, my favorite Marvel character would be Spider-Man, as I said before, you know, because just like I said before, I can really relate to him because of his personal struggles as both a teenager and a superhero. And for my favorite DC character, Batman, because, well, this is a cliche response, well, because he's Batman, right? Who is your favorite Doctor Who doctor, for your fourth question? That's a really good question, and I do love Doctor Who. My favorite Doctor would be the Ninth Doctor, because I can relate to him. You know, he has a heart of gold, or in this case, hearts of gold, because he's a doctor, he has 2 hearts. But, you know, he lets, you know, his history, you know, affect him with the Great Time War, and believe it or not, Doctor Who actually saved me once because I was suffering depression at one point and I was really sad. And when I was watching Doctor Who on TV, and it was my first time watching Doctor Who, and when the character appeared, I really can relate to him and I can totally empathize and sympathize his pain, and I know what it's like. In fact, he's the reason why my catchphrase became fantastic. And that's why I have a leather jacket. So thank you for that question. Fifth question. Who do you think would win in a fight between Superman and the Hulk? Easy, Superman. I love both Marvel and DC equally, but that doesn't mean I'm biased to one or the other. So I'd say Superman definitely. I love the Hulk, but Superman would win because, well, Hulk's strength comes from rage, while Superman's strength comes from, his Kryptonian physiology. And he's beat Doomsday before, who is just as strong as the Hulk. So that's why I think Superman would win. And a comment. If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know. I will give you a shout out in my next video. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much for the kind words, DK TARDIS, but I really appreciate you giving me a shout out, but I prefer to earn my way to get a shout out. I don't want to ask or beg, but I do appreciate you giving me, the thought, and I just want to thank you so much for that. Thank you, DK TARDIS. Next question. Leo Antolin, who is my cameraman. As a person with a YouTube account, are your videos going to be very primarily comic books / book centric, or is that going to be only like 60% of your focus, or are you just, taking this as you go along? Thank you, Leo. And since he's my cameraman, I'll answer his questions personally. Isn't that right, Leo?
Sure.
That's a really good question, Leo. So my main focus will be comic books, and toys, and anything in that field. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
But I do want to give variety to my channel. So I like to do variety because doing one thing to me is boring. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and your other question. What was the first real comic book property you would say that had a real impact on you? Well, that's a really good question, Leo. I grew up with superheroes and comic books all my life, especially when I was 6 years old. Well, I had neighbors who were my babysitters, and, they had a collection of a lot of superhero toys. And, when he let me play with them, I thought there were so many cool characters, a lot of Marvel characters too. Like there's so many X-Men toys, Fantastic Four toys, Spider-Man. That's what my babysitter got me into Marvel. Well, my parents got me into DC. They don't know much about comic books, but they do love Batman, and that's the reason why I love Batman. Like with my parents, I grew up with the Adam West 1966 show, and I thought that was the funniest iteration of Batman, and that's why people love it. But what really got me into Batman was the 1990 series by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, and those guys know how to make a superhero cartoon. And that cartoon captures every aspect of Batman, serious, dark, has a lot of realistic moments that anybody can relate to. So, does that answer your questions, Leo?
Yeah.
Thank you, Leo Antolin. Last question. Comic Book Fan 1992. Another good friend of mine, Edgar Farrer, who's also my Facebook friend. First question. What do you want to see in the Marvel reboot? If you guys haven't heard, the Marvel comic books are gonna reboot itself after the Secret Wars storyline. So, what do I expect from it? Well, since it's gonna be a reboot, I expect a lot of new, fresh takes on each character. But at the same time, keep it, familiar, because I don't want too many changes in the Marvel reboot. Second question, do you think that there are more